Apartheid, separation, to keep apart, aparthood. These are the various definitions of the African word apartheid. Apartheid was the former policy of segregation and discrimination against the majority black inhabitants of South Africa by the white Afrikaners, developed officially after World War II. – 1945, World War II ends with the fall of the Axis powers. The Nazis were found to have killed 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. These atrocities committed led to the questioning of social Darwinism in the Western world. The division of racial classes was no longer justified. However, apartheid still existed in the southern coast of Africa. Earlier, the British had invaded the Dutch colonies of Transvaal and the Orange Free State following the discovery of gold mines. In the Boer Wars, the Boers, the Dutch farmers and settlers, rebelled against the British Empire, leading to the loss of countless lives in the Boer way of life. In the aftermath of the Boer Wars, the Union of South Africa was formed in 1910, combining the British colonies and Boer republics. However, in this imperialist society, blacks were excluded because of the Natives Act of 1923, which segregated blacks from whites by allowing only whites to purchase and lease land. South Africa won its independence from Britain in 1931 as the African National Party gained power. In 1948, the Haringey National Party won on its apartheid policy, arguing that South Africa was not a single nation, but different racial federations of which blacks belonged to 10 of 13 of them. They enacted apartheid laws which put blacks into black townships. Various legislations were passed with apartheid. The first was the Population Registration Act, formalizing racial groups in 1948. Others, the Prohibition of Mixed Marriages Act of 1949, Population Registration Act of 1950, Group Areas Act of 1950, which created different residential districts for races to live in, the Bantu Building Workers Act of 1951, which made it a criminal offense for blacks to perform skilled work in urban areas except for specific jobs, the Bantu Education Act of 1953, which forced a separate curriculum for black people, which would ultimately prevent Africans from receiving proper education. In the 1950s, Nelson Mandela became the leader of the African National Congress, which tried to abolish apartheid peacefully just like Gandhi. The African National Congress should not be confused with the Afrikaner National Congress. In 1960, in the Sharpeville massacre, the police gunned down 69 African protesters. Eventually, guerrilla warfare was accepted by the peaceful Mandela, who was arrested in 1964 and sentenced to life in prison because of his new non-peaceful ways. Apartheid affected international relations by leading to sanctions and embargoes on many levels. Organizations such as FIFA and the Olympic Committee withdrew invitations for South Africa to compete in the Olympics and the World Cup, which culturally affected the citizens who were not able to compete to be the best in the world. They lacked the competitiveness that other countries had. The lack of participation in international sports was claimed to be one of the worst effects on apartheid by South Africans. The international community isolated South Africa through boycott with economic, cultural, and military sanctions, which included oil and arms embargoes as well as even a music embargo, preventing musicians from entering the country. In 1990, the President de Klerk freed Nelson Mandela, agreeing to negotiate the policy of apartheid with him. After discussion and unrest, democratic conventions and other discussions were made. In 1994, apartheid was abolished, and Mandela was elected in the first open election in South Africa. During this time, great international pressure was placed on South Africa, including organizations such as the United Nations, who created embargoes, as well as exemption from sports by organizations such as the Olympic Games. Frederick de Klerk was negotiating to end apartheid, allowing for multiracial elections in 1994. This was eventually won by the African National Congress under Nelson Mandela. While South Africa had officially ended apartheid, economic poverty still existed as poor blacks attempted to be integrated into society from the poor townships they once were a part of because they did not have a good enough education or proper training. Blacks also still seeked punitive measures against whites through crimes such as robbery. Conversely, several white South Africans still maintained a systematic racism, blaming blacks for bad economy and such. Moreover, whites feel a reverse racism being enacted upon them, such as by the Black Economic Empowerment. Attempts to address the economic equality still maintain a problem today. On the other hand, South Africa is reinstated to the United Nations General Assembly, African Union, and the Commonwealth of Nations. Despite internal problems, South Africa remains a leader in its region, providing aid to surrounding nations and even hosting the 2010 World Cup.